All right, guys. So, for about just under 2 weeks, I've been working on the camper portion of my second gen Toyota Sienna camper build here, and I want to give you guys an update. It's not finished, so this is still rough construction, so keep that in mind. But I just wanted to talk about the design. So I start off with the bed. Now this will just be for myself, so just a lone traveler. Put the bed on the driver's side. This will be configured to where you could either put your head on either side of this. However, because there's a wheel well bump out here and there's kind of some space that comes inward right here by the door, and that of course mirrors on the other side. When I built that wall, that mirrored, and I'll show you guys a little closer, that'll make clear that change in width. So the bed is actually technically wider on this side. So my general impression is I'd probably sleep with my head down there and my shoulders up and the feet down here. The total width from that back side up to the front of here is just a little over 75 inches, so plenty of room to stretch out. And probably what the biggest feature here you guys see is I built a wall. Now I chose to do this on the driver's side. Of course, that now closes down access to the door. I personally like passenger side access door. I think it makes a little bit more sense, especially if you're in a curb and so forth. Now, why I did this and kind of the main genesis of my design and what I wanted here is I want to create this as a camper so that when you walk into it, you don't get a sense that you're in a minivan. I want this to have, more of a cozy camper kind of sense. And so I went with the cedar, and that's kind of why I went with the walls. Now, it was a little bit of a risk because I was really, really concerned that it would make it feel very boxed and closed in here. And at least in my perception, I think it's actually made the opposite, which kind of surprised me. I'm guessing it's because of the lighter colored wood. Now, this wood has not been finished. This is cedar. I still have to sand it down, and I'll put probably an oil-based coating. I haven't made up my mind yet, but the tone of the wood will essentially be very similar. It's not going to darken up a lot or anything like that. And I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. Now, if you guys are familiar with my other Sienna build, ventilation is obviously important in these, and I had a sunroof on my other Sienna. This one I do not. And in the sunroof option, I had a couple of those heavy-duty computer fans on a modulator that I could adjust the speed on that were pulling through the sunroof. I don't have a sunroof, so my next option is up here, and of course I don't have it built out yet, but I will have a panel, and I'll be able to fit 4 fans up there, and I think 4 fans should do me just fine for the big ones I've gotten. So let's jump in. All right, so we have the bed. Now, I'm sure most of you guys know, and I'll show you guys in greater detail, but there's a lot of drop-down storage because there normally would have been a 3rd row seats that you could actually fold up underneath and tuck into that area. What I have here is a porta potty. I always like to carry a porta potty, particularly for emergencies. This will have a little door on it, of course, and you guys can see some arms here coming out. This will be a countertop back there, okay? On this side, so this is the passenger side now, I built in this wall section here. Now, what I will have is I will have a pull-down door that will flap down like this and function as like a desk surface, okay? So you could essentially sit here on the edge of the bed. Now, of course, there'll be cushions and all kinds of stuff like that later on. This is just the frame. And then you could pull down this door right here and you'd have a desk. I did that in camper 8 and 9, really liked it. I was able to get a little bit more additional storage out of here, added a little cubby down here at the bottom and a little side cubby right here. As you guys see over here, we got a cubby there and a little bit of a narrow cubby there. Now, each of these cubby boxes are actually made out of plywood. This is 1/2-inch plywood. And if you guys are curious for material use, between the box that this sits in, this cubby, this cubby, this cubby, and this cubby, it was just under a full sheet of 1/2-inch plywood. And then the backs to all these cubbies is actually just 1/4-inch plywood to keep it nice and light. In terms of the cedar boards, this is the same construction method I've used in many of my builds. Just cedar fence pickets you buy at Lowe's, Home Depot, etc. Plane them down to 1/2 inch. And, you know, I have a column structure behind these walls that hold them in place, which I'm going to show you guys in a moment. But speaking in a general sense, this is the general design. So you can come in, you've got your refrigerator here, you'll have your bed here. I am going to create tilting up cushion sections that will tilt up on either side. So you can kind of like, you know, if you're in chill mode, you can tilt them up and it'll be like a little couch, you know, kind of like a chase lounge, I guess you could say, or you could just sit on them as you see them here. Let's take a look in the back of this wall section here so you guys can get a sense. Actually, before we get there, let's look at this right here. So this is that storage that goes down, as you guys can see. So I'm gonna build a countertop that runs across here. It will come up here, it will kind of indent right here, and then it will actually extend around the top of this toilet section and over in here. I will have 12 gallons of water storage, so 2 of those will actually sit right here, and even with the countertop on top, I should be able to pull out. But I'll still maintain some large vertical storage on the side, which I think is important. And then this section down in here, hopefully it can fit, but my goal is I'll put a diesel heater back here, and then all of this storage will just be a big bulk storage for automotive accessories, you know, tools and air compressors and, you know, stuff like that you would need for automotive emergencies. Let's go around the side here. So this door still opens. And what you guys can see, so what you see right here, these 2 boards, this is the back side of the bed frame. And you see these columns are actually screwed into the bed frame itself. So the bed is clamped down to the floor, and then these wall sections were built in to the bed. Now there was no adhesive used, so this could essentially be removed if you wanted to. And then the whole wall was built onto itself. Not the most elegant connection type, but one column here is actually attached to this hand grab, which is pretty stout, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. And then everything else just being attached to the bed frame and building off of each other produced a nearly unmovable wall. Now, I haven't put the insulation in, but this gives me a great opportunity to really insulate this van well. And essentially, I'm just going to cover all of this with Thinsulate insulation. I'll show you an example of that in a moment here if you guys aren't familiar. But building this wall here really gave a lot of storage. This is a really nice vertical narrow storage. You know, I usually just carry like a 22 or something, a little rifle with me just for plinking out in the desert. That's going to be a perfect spot to put that. I would imagine if you had collapsible fishing poles or something, that would fit really nice there. Maybe you could fit a camp chair. You know, you guys get the point. That's pretty notable amount of vertical storage, and you could put stuff down at the bottom. Now, you can't access that storage from inside. That would just be kind of like bulk camping storage. But I like the idea, and you guys can imagine that really a lot of insulation can go inside of there. So even though you can't get out the door from the inside, I think it still has some uses. And then right here, this is what Thinsulate looks like if you guys are not familiar. And this, I've got this lined up back here in the window area, and that will cover all in there. And you guys can see here, I've started putting some of this down here. So this van will have a substantial amount of additional insulation that'll help with both acoustic and thermal. So that'll be a benefit there. Now, one thing you guys might notice that these cabinets don't come all the way to the back here, and that was done for a couple reasons. I will trim it out. I've got a couple ideas in mind right now as to how I'm going to do that. But the reason I didn't run all these cabinets all the way back, first and foremost, is your rear shock absorber access, if you needed to replace it, is down here. Now, I replaced the shock absorbers literally just 2 weeks ago when I put the lift in this van, so I don't anticipate having to touch them. But I do want to kind of have it to where, you know, if you did need to repair something, you know, you didn't have to disassemble the camper to do so. So I wanted to have access to these. Two, though there would have been other workarounds, this gives nice vertical storage access here. And then finally, ventilation. So my particular van, and it seems like most of these Siennas have this little window opens up like a little wing window back here. And it's electronically controlled from up in the cabin area. And what I found on my 2011 camper build is I will open up these little side wing windows and turn on my vent fan and just let that air circulate. And the same thing will be set up here. Like I mentioned, I don't have the sunroof in this one, so that open gap up there above that cubby, that's going to be where my 4 computer fans, those will function as my vent fans, will be. And this will allow me to open this up and have clear airflow into the van from both this side and this side. Of course, I'll make it nice and neat. I haven't made up my mind, but I might have like cut a piece of plywood that kind of comes down at an angle and kind of closes this off, and then I might add, you know, drill some vent holes or something. I'll play that by ear. But yeah, guys, this is it in a nutshell. This is unfinished, so obviously I still have a lot of construction to do, but I think this is enough to where you guys can kind of get a sense for where I'm going with it. I think it'll actually be pretty useful. I can't remember, I had to cut the video a couple times because I had some stuff going on. So if I repeat myself, I apologize. But this top part here will be a countertop surface. I'm gonna use some walnut, so that'll look real nice contrast with the cedar wood. And that's where we're at. So the bulk of the construction's done. It's just a lot of finish work, which will take equally as long or maybe even a little bit longer. So thanks for watching.